If you're hoping to go camping in Acadia National Park, then this video is for you. Today I want to talk about how to get a campsite and where I prefer to camp when I'm visiting this beautiful national park. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes. And whenever we go to Acadia, we love to camp. It's one of our favorite national parks to camp in. And so today I want to talk you through the ins and outs of getting a campsite to make sure that you have what you're hoping for on your visit to Acadia. Let's jump in. Acadia does their camping a little bit different than some of the other national parks you may have visited. So I want to talk you through the ins and outs of this. But basically, Acadia has what I would consider 3 traditional front country campgrounds and one that's a little bit more backcountry, but not entirely. And so a lot of people get confused by the different options here in this park. I will talk you through all 4 campgrounds and kind of what they entail. But just know that there is no actual backcountry camping in the park. So you can't get a permit and you can't just hike wherever and set up a tent. You need to either be in the 3 front country ones, the one that's a little more backcountry, and that's it. You can't just park your car anywhere. If you're not in one of those 4 places, then you cannot overnight in Acadia National Park. A few things you'll want to note that apply to each of these campgrounds is that each campsite has a limit of 6 people and 2 small tents. There is no first come, first serve in Acadia National Park, so everything has to be reserved in advance. Those go on sale typically 2 months in advance of the dates you're hoping to visit the park. So you will need to make a reservation if you want to camp in Acadia. My other tip for camping in Acadia is to make sure when you're trying to get those reservations that you're really watching the length limits, the driveway length. Everything is pretty finicky, and you want to make sure that you're getting a campsite that's going to be able to fit the equipment that you're bringing for camping. You'll also want to be aware that there's a 14-night stay limit, and so you will be limited to that amount of time if you're hoping to camp in Acadia. And at Duck Harbor, which is the more backcountry type campground, you're actually limited to 3 nights there. So keep that in mind as you're making your plans. Okay, so I want to show you on the map of Acadia where to find these campgrounds so you can kind of get an idea of where you want to be. Acadia is pretty unique in that it's made up of a few different islands. Some of the points of interest are pretty far away from each other, and so you will want to pay close attention to what location you want to be camping near, what island you want to be on when you're making these reservations. So basically, the 4 different campgrounds, we have 2 over here on Mount Desert Island, there's 1 on the Schoodic Peninsula, and there's 1 on the Isle of Ho. So when you're making your reservations, you're most likely, if you're a first-time visitor to Acadia, you're going to want to focus on Mount Desert Island. That's where most of the main can't-miss activities in Acadia are, and so camping over here usually makes the most sense for most people. Here's a closer-up map of Mount Desert Island, so you can see this is where you'll find Cadillac Mountain, Jordan Pond. You've got the Beehive over here, the very famous hike in Acadia. You've got the town of Bar Harbor right here. So this really is mostly the hub of Acadia. And there are 2 campgrounds on Mount Desert Island. So you've got the Blackwoods campground down here, which is located really close to the Park Loop Road, which has a ton of activities. This is kind of where most people focus their time anyway. And so this would be my number 1 choice of campground for when you visit Acadia, just because it is so close to everything. Your other campground is over here, down on the quieter side of the island. So you go up and over and drive down, and you'll find the Seawall campground down here. It's right on the ocean. It's absolutely beautiful. It's an older campground, a little less nice facilities. It is further away from most of the things over here, but a lot of people like to stay over here so that they can have a quieter experience on Mount Desert Island. You're also close to the Bass Harbor Head Lighthouse, which is really cool. And then this area too has some really great hiking and some lakes you can swim in. So as I mentioned, if you're hoping to stay closer to the main can't miss activities in Acadia, then I would start with Blackwoods. If you can't get something there, then I would move to Seawall and see if you can get something there. These other two campgrounds that I'll talk about in a minute are much further away from most of the main things that you'll probably want to do as a first-time visitor to Acadia. Okay, so coming back to the map of Acadia National Park, so here's Mount Desert Island where I just showed you those two campgrounds. The next campground that you could choose from is the Schoodic Woods campground. It's over here on the Schoodic Peninsula. You can either take a ferry across the water here and over to Winter Harbor, and then they have a bus system that travels this section that can take you over to a campsite. Or you'll need to drive around, come up and around and over here and drop down to Winter Harbor. So looking at a closer up map of the Schoodic Peninsula, so you've got Winter Harbor right here. Your Schoodic Woods campground is right in here near the visitor center. And then there's this one-way road that goes around the peninsula. There's some really great hiking in here. Schoodic Point is one of my favorite views in Acadia National Park. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's just a really quiet, small area. There's not a ton to do here, but it is really pretty. So I would say as far as campgrounds go in Acadia, Schoodic Woods is actually the nicest. It's really, really good for RVs. It's got a lot of the sites have hookups, and it's just really nicely laid out. It's one of the newer type style of campgrounds with more space for bigger rigs and better facilities. So I do really love the Schoodic Woods campground. However, like I mentioned, it's just really far from Mount Desert Island. You're talking an hour and a half drive or so to get over there. And so it really doesn't make sense to stay there if you're hoping to do a bunch of stuff on Mount Desert Island. So keep that in mind. But again, I still recommend starting with Blackwoods if you're a first-time visitor and staying on Mount Desert Island. And then if you have a few extra days or you have a little extra time, you could book the Schoodic Woods campground for a night or two and head out to the Schoodic Peninsula for a couple days if you have time to do that. The last camping option in Acadia is down here on the Isle of Howe. You can see it is quite far from both Mount Desert Island and the Schoodic Peninsula, so you're talking hours of driving to get over here. But basically, you're going to have to come up and around and drive down here to Stonington, where you can then take a ferry over to the Isle. So here's a close-up of the Isle of Howe. And so when you take the ferry down here, the ferry during the Maine summer season, it will stop at both the town landing and the Duck Harbor landing. You'll want to make sure that you can get to the Duck Harbor landing via ferry. Otherwise, you'll have to hike through the island to get down here to where the Duck Harbor campground is right here. So the Duck Harbor campground is more of your backcountry type option. You need to pack everything that you need with you. You can't drive your vehicle here. So you take the ferry to the campground, and then they have some like lean-to type structures that you can set your tent up under. And then you need to have all that you need, water, you pack your trash out. You need to bring all the food, all the equipment, everything that you'll need, because you're just kind of stuck there because you're so dependent on the ferry. So that's why I say Duck Harbor is a little bit more of the backcountry type option. If you want that experience in Acadia, it's super cool. It is just really far away from the main stuff to do. It wouldn't be your traditional, I want to go camping in Acadia and go see all the things type of experience. It would be I want to do something totally different that hardly anyone gets to do and stay on this island that has beautiful scenery, but not a whole lot to do. If you want more specific information about each of these campgrounds, you can go to dirtinmyshoes.com, and I have a full article about everything you need to know and individual information for each campground. So you can see open season, max RV length, if there's hookups or not. All of that is here for you so that you can make a better decision for your group. Okay, so as soon as you decide which campground will work best for you when you're in Acadia, then it's time to make your reservation. And as I mentioned, Acadia has no first come, first served sites, so you do need to make your reservation online in advance. Do not show up to this park hoping to get a campsite. you will need to do this all on recreation.gov. So I want to walk you through the process and what to expect. Okay, so I'm on recreation.gov, and this is the website that the National Park Service uses. I'm going to put in Acadia National Park. I'm going to click on camping and day use, and it will drop me down to the various camping options in this park. So as I mentioned, Blackwoods Campground is my number one choice. As a first-time visitor, if you've never been there before, it really makes a lot of sense to stay in this one. And so I'm going to click on Blackwoods, and I'm going to look at what's available. So as you can see, we're in the middle of summer. Pretty much everything's been reserved. All of these R's mean that it's been reserved. Now, what you want to do in advance of when these reservations need to be made is you'll want to come in and do some research on which campsites are going to work for you. That's very important because you are booking on a campsite by campsite basis. And so you need to know which campsites are going to work for you so that you can reserve them quickly as soon as they become available. So Blackwoods has a lot of tent only, and you'll want to pay attention to that. If you need to filter, you can come to this filter up here. You can say, I have an RV or a tent. You can say how long you want the driveway to be when you go in. And so you'll want to filter things out so that you can find the campsites that are going to work for you. Campsites in Acadia become available 2 months in advance at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So most national parks are 6 months in advance. Acadia is a little bit different. It does 2 months. So you want to pay attention to that. Make sure you get that on your calendar. Make sure you show up to get these reservations exactly at 10 a.m. that 2 months in advance. That's really important if you're hoping to get the campsite that you want. Okay, so when you show up to the campground reservation system, you might see something that looks a little bit like this. There is some availability because this is in September. It's a little more the off season, and so they don't get snatched up quite as quickly. But if you're hoping to go in the middle of the summer, you likely won't see much availability at all. You'll probably mostly see these R's saying everything's reserved. And then you'll also see NRs, which means that has not yet been released for those dates. So this site, if you do your research and you find that you want this site particularly, then you'll want to come in, and for the dates that you're hoping to get, you'll want to click on the NR, and it will tell you to come back on this date at this time to get that campsite. So that's really important to pay attention to as well. But as you can see, there is some availability here still, quite a bit actually, because mid-September is really not peak season in Acadia. So, but you will see these NRs. So make sure that that's a site that's going to work for you if that's the one you're hoping to reserve when it becomes available. So I'm going to click into just a random site. Okay, so here's my site that I clicked on. I'm looking at it. I want to see what it will allow me to have in this site. And so this site you can see is tent only. I cannot bring an RV to this site. I have to be staying in a tent if I want to book this one. And they are super strict about this. Acadia is one of the more strict national parks when it comes to what they will allow in each site. So make sure you're paying really close attention to this. They will only allow a tent. The driveway length is 15 feet. So that's gonna fit one vehicle. That's it. You can drive your vehicle, you can park there, and then your tent needs to be able to fit on the tent pad that's there. So another thing that's fun is it will say if it supports a hammock. I get those questions sometimes. For Acadia specifically, it will tell you if you can have a hammock in the site or not. If there's enough trees to do that, then it will say. So you'll want to read through this very carefully and just make sure it completely matches what you're hoping to bring when you go camping here. Let's take a look at another site. All of these are booked up, but these are RV sites. The RV sites will go much quicker than the tent only sites. So if you're hoping to be in an RV, you'll want to make sure that you are here right at 10 a.m. on the day that this opens up. But you can see it says that you can have a max RV of 35 feet. RV non-electric. There are no hookups in here, but it does fit an RV. And then you can look through here and see it will tell you what you can have in this particular site, which is a lot of different things. So this is a really good one. This driveway is a pull through. The driveway length is 35, which still is not very long. Maximum number of vehicles is 1, and that is your RV. So sometimes in Blackwoods, you can have space to park like your trailer, your RV, and then your tow vehicle will actually have to go park in overflow because there's not enough space in some of these campsites. So that's another thing to watch out for too. It does get a little funky. A lot of these sites say that they will only support 1 vehicle. This looks pretty big. I would book this for us, and then I'd pull the trailer in, and we might be able to get our truck in here too, as long as you stay on pavement. So it totally just depends site to site, but that's something you'll definitely want to pay attention to. I really can't stress this enough that you really do need to pay attention to what type of equipment you're bringing, how big it is, how much space you're going to need driveway-wise as far as what vehicles you're bringing. Make sure that you do not book a tent-only site if you are bringing a trailer or an RV of any type. So pay attention to those site limits. They are very important in Acadia. Okay, so once you decide on a site, one that will work for you, then basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to hit the add to cart button exactly when they open up the reservation. So that 10 a.m. time, this one has availability, so I don't need to rush it. But if you're over here and you put in, I want this date to this date, you'll want to do that before it hits 10 a.m., have it ready, and then once it hits 10 a.m., then you're going to click add to cart. If it's not yet released, it won't let you click on it, so you just wait here till it hits 10 a.m. These should turn blue when they're released, and then you should be able to select your dates. At that point, you're just going to add to your cart, and you'll want to keep filling this out. Make sure you read everything, and you will finish the payment process to get that reservation. Couple other tips to give you kind of a leg up on getting these reservations is we like to always have every adult who is coming with us make an account on recreation.gov and try to get the campsites as well. So usually, like for our family, it will be both me and my husband trying to get those campsites at the time that they open up. And usually one or both of us will be able to get something, and then we'll decide which one we want to keep, and we'll finish out the reservation process from there. But the more adults you have coming with you, the better chance you have of getting something if each adult makes their own account on recreation.gov. And I also can't stress enough that it's very important to do your own research beforehand. Make sure you have a list of campsites that will work for you so that you aren't trying to figure it out as everything's opening up and getting snatched up. One more thing, Acadia is pretty unique in that although you might not get something in the national park itself, if you don't do this research beforehand or you're trying to put together a last minute trip, you might have trouble getting something in the national park. But Acadia is surrounded by little communities. It's not rural. You do have little towns and cities around you while you're in Acadia. And a lot of those places also have some camping options. So some private camping is available in the Bar Harbor area, pretty readily available. So by no means do you need to limit yourself to just camping in the national park. You can still camp near Bar Harbor and have a really good experience and be in a great location. I recommend taking a look at a website that shows you the different camping options. I like Campendium. They have done me really well over the years of trying to find camping. You'll see Bar Harbor is right here. You can zoom in here. Here's Acadia, so you can see here's Blackwoods. It has information on Blackwoods and Seawall, but then it also shows you the private RV parks that are around the same area. So, for example, if we can't get something in Blackwoods or Seawall, a lot of times I will go to this one, which is the Bar Harbor Campground. We really like this one, and it's super convenient to still getting to all of this Maine stuff on Mount Desert Island. So that's a great option as well, but as you can see, there's quite a few options if you're not able to get something in the national park itself. If you need any additional help planning your trip to Acadia National Park, Be sure to click over to dirtandmyshoes.com. I have a ton of articles that will walk you through everything you need to know to make your trip a success. I also have an hour-by-hour Acadia itinerary, which will show you when to be where, how to avoid the crowds, how to use the shuttle system, how to see the best stuff. All of that is included in the Acadia itinerary. So thank you for watching today, and I hope that you're able to get the campsite that you want in beautiful Acadia National Park.